What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hobby Hotline Overtime. Another wonderful Tuesday evening. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. What's up, Jenny? Everybody else tuning in out there on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We are live on Twitter now as well. But as always, my name is Drew or DH, and joining me today, we've got Adam. What's going on, man?
How we doing? Doing well tonight. Excited to get the show going.
Absolutely. And then we also have joining us 1 million Cubs, Mr. Beau Thompson. What's up, dude?
What's up? I'm using this as my escape from the terrible baseball news this afternoon.
Yeah.
So talking cards will get me back in a positive mood.
Absolutely. Definitely some rough baseball news, which I'm sure we'll get to a little bit later today. It's a little interesting stuff going on there for sure. But wanted to start off the show today, guys, by talking about this weekend. A couple of really big shows were going on. We had Culture Collision up in Atlanta, and then I was down in Orlando at Collecticon, which two really big shows. Culture Collision, I heard, was a huge success from everyone that I talked to. They said it was a lot better than the first. It was apparently jam-packed. And Collecticon was awesome. I was a little disappointed in the lack of sports cards. It was a lot more TCG-oriented than I expected, but I think that's probably because Culture Collision was going on at the same time. But Collecticon is, a traveling show, so there will be multiple ones of those throughout the year in different areas. But it was interesting seeing at the shows, being – it was the first big show that I'd gone to in a while, but you had two big ones on the East Coast this weekend, and both of them were extremely packed, and they seemed to be a huge success. So, it shows the strength of the hobby right now, at least in my eyes.
Most definitely. I put on a show in Madison, Wisconsin. We had ours this past Saturday as well, packed. I had to get a second room, had 110 tables, which is a pretty good size for for a regional hotel show. So it was, once again, it was packed, and the hobby is in good hands right now. I mean, it's we're not where we were last year, but take out the first quarter of 21, because that was just insane the way it had peaked, the way it did. But you compare the hobby now and what we see at shows, it's in much better hands than where it was in even 2019 and beyond. We had started seeing a hobby kind of take off in 2017, 2018, and then, of course, it peaked, but it's still flying high. And, I think we all saw that at shows this past weekend and over the last several months.
Yeah, when I got back into sports cards in probably like 2018-ish, I mean, I guess this is a question for you guys who've been in it longer than I have. Mm-hmm. How would you feel the temperature is at like these shows compared to 2014, 2015? I mean, even up until 2019 as well. Like I went to the National in 2019, and it was incredible. I mean, it was wild. So I'm wondering from your guys' perspective, like, how would you compare these shows that are going on now to, I guess from the 2014 to maybe even 2019 era of cards?
Well, I think, we've kind of addressed it on this show as it's gone on the last couple of months. I remember talking about this and talking about when shows were coming back and saying that I thought it would be pretty interesting to see if we'd get some of these regionalized shows and traveling shows. And I'm liking the fact that I'm starting to see those come up, like Collecticon and Culture Collision. But the local shows, like Beau, you're talking about, you just had a 110 table show. I use our Hickory show. Hickory is a small town in North Carolina, right outside of Charlotte, not big at all. Very small town that is mostly just a travel through town, small college there. That's about it. It was always known as being a kind of a hotbed for sports cards in North Carolina, and it's hosted shows. That show used to be at a tiny little hotel in like a little ballroom. Now it's at almost a convention center type of area. Now it's from conference room D to conference room A. It's multiple rooms. I mean, multiplied tremendously, at least here in North Carolina. And then I think you see like Culture Collision, and you see, Collecticon, which is going to be traveling the country this whole year. I see a lot of these localized shows getting a lot bigger. The Hickory shows are absolute jam-packed all the time, sold out. And, that's my kind of neck of the woods in my area. But compared to 2014, I mean, it's night and day. I see 10 times more deals going on. It used to be you'd have the people there maybe, but the action wasn't always there. It was a lot more of like a museum feel, some of the shows. You didn't see a ton of wheeling and dealing. Nowadays, that's all I see. It's happening like crazy. And so that, I think more people and a lot more wheeling and dealing, at least on my end.
So I have a perspective more along the lines of the smaller hotel shows, the small monthlies. My first national wasn't like you, Adam, was 2019. And I go to the Chicago shows, but more often than not, and through history, I've done the small shows. Now back in like 2014 and 2012, when I would do a show, I would bring like a magazine with me, because there was downtime. Like legit, I would have to bring something with me because I may not have a person at my table for an hour. And it wasn't because I didn't have good stuff. It was because there was no traffic. And, those shows were, a monthly hotel show was 15 tables, 20 tables, and hardly anybody. And now, a lot of my monthly show here in Madison is over 100 tables. Oak Creek, Wisconsin does a show. It's over 100 tables. Rockford, Illinois, 85 tables. So a lot of these, smaller monthly shows are 100 table shows now, and and they're packed. You can't leave your table because there's always somebody there. So it's changed. It is night and day from just a few years ago to now.
Yeah, I think one of also the really great things about seeing these big shows is like, it couldn't help but feel a couple months ago that things in sports cards may have been slowing down a little bit. But then you see these like sold out shows in like 3 different areas of the country. And then, you've got like the Mint Collective, you've got the National obviously coming up. You had the Dallas show like a month ago. It just feels good to see that the hobby is still strong, especially when, like I said, I think the feeling around the hobby probably in like early January was like things are not going as well as maybe everyone would hope. And, maybe the haters or whatever, they're the ones that they're celebrating because they're seeing that, the hobby or whatever. And for whatever reason, who knows why they're doing this, but, they're the ones that are, trying to dance on the grave of the hobby. But it's like everyone in the hobby knows how much, like how many people are in it every single day. But then when you actually get to see people at these shows, like I think that's one of the big things that I would point to if, you have somebody that is like either commenting or talking about it and saying the hobby isn't what it used to be. Like all you have to do is really point at these shows and be like, look at how many people, look at CollectorCon, and then also the Culture Collision.
4 hours, 6 hours away.
2 different shows that were just packed to the brim with collectors buying and selling, and events going on with people breaking on the like big screen and stuff like that. So like it's great to see that even in like February, like it's like I'm sure once we get to the summer thing and maybe some more Northeast shows come around, we may see that. But it's great to see that a lot of people are still heading out to those shows.
Oh, I think. No, go ahead, Beau.
One thing I was concerned about last year was we saw an influx of new collectors come in, and we saw from the flipper side the sneaker group come in for flippers. We also saw dads who haven't collected in 20, 30 years bringing back into the hobby. I thought some of those new collectors, but at the shows I'm at, I continuously hear people say this is the first card show I've been to in 30 years, and I hear that every month, and I don't hear it just once or twice. I hear it multiple times at every show I'm at, which just proves that there's a continuing of new collectors coming back or entering for the first time.
Oh, absolutely. At the show that, at Collecticon, we were doing all the PSA submissions for the whole event. And so most of the people that were at the table that were coming up were tons of people. And the amount of people that I saw that said, okay, this is my first time submitting, or I'm going to my first show, or that I just got into it last year and they're bringing out their older stuff that they just dug out. It was tremendous. It was a lot more than your average customer that was coming up that submits all the time and things like that. But then looking at Collecticon, like I said, it was really light on the sports card side of things, but you can't tell me anyone that stepped foot at Collecticon that the TCG space isn't on fire.
Yes.
From Kickstarter funded projects, MetaZoo, this new one that was there called Titan, I think is going to absolutely explode this year as well. Their booth was packed all weekend, down to just Pokemon, but it's way beyond just Pokemon and maybe some Fortnite now in that community. And it's not just a little niche. I'm talking a massive amount of people that are in this stuff. And, I think for some reason, I don't understand it. Like you'd said, Adam, there's so many people that I think we're just frustrated over everything and the big wave and the ups and downs we've had over the past year of pricing and everything, that everyone just wants to vent that frustration about the hobby not being great every chance they get. And let's face it, you can pick and choose anything you want to support that argument. Right. You'll find something somewhere, but in the grand scheme of things, if you look at it, the hobby is incredibly strong right now, especially in terms of the shows and the in-person aspect of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think for people like us who are like on Twitter and creating content all across social media, like we're so dialed in on everything that's kind of going on in the market. Like we see all the comments that everyone is leaving on, whatever the most popular Instagram post or whatever the most popular tweet of the day is or whatever. And so, we see some of the negative stuff maybe more, and it maybe affects us a little bit more because it's something that it's something that we do. We love doing it, and we're spending a lot of our time doing it. Some of us all of our time, some of us part-time, but like, I think if you take a step back and kind of look at it, things from 10,000 feet, things are going great. I think. I mean, there's always kind of new stuff to talk about, which is always great from a content perspective. So I think for me, it's always good to just take a step back and realize that like the one negative comment that you got on your post isn't necessarily the narrative of what is exactly going on in the hobby. Like it may just, like you said, be one person that, had a bad experience and they kind of want to vent about what that bad experience was.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think, Kevin Jones, I believe, he just mentioned TCG Ultimate is the future of trading cards in the hobby when millennials and the iGen kids hit their peak earning years. And I completely agree. The amount of kids that I saw with $50,000, $100,000 collections this weekend that are probably 12 and under was mind-blowing in the TCG space. I mean, the things that's a space that I'm in a little bit with my son just for fun, but I'm not really that, dialed into that space like I am sports cards. And this show was a very, very big eye-opening to me that, okay, this isn't just a couple Instagram posts that a couple influencers are pushing. This is some big stuff. And there's a massive following behind it. I was incredibly blown away by the support for the new MetaZoo stuff. Like I said, that this game Titan that is just starting to come out, all these, they're not like, the Jersey Fusion stuff that just popped up and came out of nowhere in sports where these guys are putting on all their own money and doing it themselves. These are crowdfunded, crowdsourced things. So they've got that built-in following when they start. And those tables, you want to talk about being packed all weekend. The MetaZoo line, that is just something that I think a lot of people probably have no clue what I'm talking about, and I didn't until this weekend. But by the end of the year, I think that's going to be one of those names you're going to be hearing, just like everything else. It was an interesting experience to say the least. But the best thing of all was just the amount of, like I said, the amount of foot traffic and the amount of dealing just like Beau said, you used to have to sit down and burn that magazine. I would always have to have something with me because there'd be a lot of downtime. We didn't have a second of downtime. Our table, I mean, at that show, we didn't have 2 seconds of downtime from start to close, Saturday and Sunday.
What else? I know there's been some like blurbs come out from the various breakout sessions. What were some of the highlights that came out of those?
Well, I guess we had the Tops had a couple of different things. Tops has been doing Tops had their convention at the same time this weekend. We saw I don't know. I've seen a couple of things. And guys, I left the link in the chat. Please feel free to call in if you've been following along at any of the top summits or anything along those lines. Or if you've been to any shows or anything else, please give us a call. Just put the link in there again. We would love to have you on the show. But I saw a couple of different things. One thing that was really interesting. And that was, I guess they were asked something about printing and production. And it was something that Brian Gray used to say when he would be on here a lot. And that was Top said when they were asked a question about Series 1 baseball and about how you've seen a million different people try and say the exact print run. I think every single number has been a couple 100,000 more than the one before. They just keep thinking it's higher and higher. But Top basically said we printed 1/10 of what we could have. It's nowhere near the junk wax era. And they actually used that phrase and, started to kind of get a little defensive by the question. The comments and the quotes, I don't know how taken out of context they were. But, I mean, they at least gave a one that was enough to be taken out of context. It looks like they were a little defensive about it. And very, very strong-willed that they did not print a lot of Series 1 and that they are not just pumping out the cards, a million cards all the time.
If they do, overprint, air quotes, for me personally, my personal opinion on it is that's cool. It's flagship.
Yeah,
print the heck out of it.
Yes,
print to demand,
please.
And there's gonna be plenty out there, and I know a lot's been said. Well, there's gonna be this many X amount of Wander Franco base rookie cards, but Topps has been out. Series 1 has been out 2 weeks now, and I've gone on a retail run, hopping around to different Walmarts and Targets the last 2 stock days, and the week of release there was plenty on. When I hit the Walmarts on Friday afternoon, got a few blasters. I went back on Saturday, nearly completely wiped out all of the stores. Like there were a couple blasters at one store. There were some blister packs at another store. That was it. This past Friday, I went back, hit up 3 Walmarts and a Target. Series 1 completely wiped out. There was a spot where it had been at one time just hours before I went there. And it was completely wiped out in just hours. Topps Series 1, Topps flagship, the second week of release, and people are still buying it. And I don't think it's just people clearing shelves. I think there's just that much demand because there's so many new collectors in the hobby that, hey, this is Topps, and I want to buy some. So I would totally agree with their comments on that.
No, I agree. And Adam will be right back, you guys. I think like Jenny had said, print, it's supposed to be, like you said, this is flagship. This is the product that's meant to grab people, hook them into the hobby. This is meant to be, some of the first cards you get. These are the ones that are always supposed to be on the shelves. These are the ones that no matter what, I think you could always at least say, worst comes to worst, I can at least find a Top series, whatever, on the shelf. That was kind of my thought when I'd go to Walmart if I'm looking for cards or something. It's like, well, if nothing else, at least I got some flagship to rip. Not this year. Not at least not yet. I haven't been able to get a single thing. I had some ordered online, some hobby boxes and stuff that I ordered myself. But in terms of like seeing it in person, you don't see it on the shelves.
And Topps is the product for kids. Everybody says we need a card product for kids. That's Topps flagship. It's not 1989. You're not going to buy a pack for 50 cents anymore. Like this, it is, we've got, the inflation. It's going to be a couple bucks for a pack of Flagship. And I know some of the other, low end products like Opening Day or maybe even Big League are poo-pooed because you don't get the hits. You don't get the shiny stuff. Well, you have a chance at those in Flagship. It's affordable for, today's standards. Again, a lot of the adults are the ones doing the complaining, the 40s and 50-year-olds that remember back in 1985 or 1990, where you could take a couple quarters and buy a pack of Tops. It's not, it's not 1985 anymore. So we have to remember that. But Topps Flagship Series 1, that's the perfect product for kids. It's a great entry. And I think they, they print a lot in a lot of our minds that we're in the hobby day in, day out. But I think that's what it's there for.
Yeah. And I agree with what you guys said about it should be available. Like it should be something that you can buy a lot of. I think the one thing that even if they did print 1 million Wander Francos, I think what it ends up doing is that it makes that card more available for people to buy. And I mean, whether it's, calling a card cheap or undervalued or whatever, it's a card. It's when the Zion cards first came out, for example, or John now, I guess, but when Zion cards first came out, they were $40 for a base rookie. And I'm sure they got up to $200, but it's $200 for an ungraded Prism card is it's ridiculous. And it's not something, to each his own. If you want to buy that card, feel free, go for it. But I can't with good conscience tell someone that you should be going out and spending $200 on a base rookie card just because, I know how many of them there are, and that's what Series 1 should be. It should be an available, easy to buy product. We've seen a ton of the Wanders hit the market, and obviously the first one that sells is in $100, $200, whatever. But if that becomes a $3, $4, $5 card down the road, I think that's a good thing. And I think the other thing with it too is the one thing that's great about sports cards that I found throughout my time kind of creating content and learning about them is that the industry is always changing. So for, 3 to 4 years up until maybe even last year, the Flagship rookie was kind of one of the good rookies to get. But now that there's more of them, someone who's maybe in it more for, flipping or investing, they're going to have to make an adjustment somewhere because, maybe they were picking up I don't know, Ronald Acuna 2018 rookies, or from 20 or Ohtani, or from 2019 they were picking up Fernando Tatis or Vlad Jr. The fact that there's so many Wander Francos, there just has to be an adjustment if you're kind of going with that strategy, which I've said that's one thing that I really like about sports cards, that it's always changing, and there's always something new to learn about the market or with any of these individual products.
And it's interesting. What's more important for say you're a rookie card collector? What's more important, that it's a high value, the rookie card, whether you call it a true rookie or the rookie, is it more important to be high value or high volume, high quantity, that it's available for everybody? And I guess that's each person's interpretation and how they want to collect it, whether it's high value or just to attain it, I guess.
And I think you're still going to have like you said, Flagship should be available, and it should be something that, settles into a lower price point. But I do think there are going to be those exceptions where the Flagship is going to be something you still really want to collect. But I think we got into this habit of thinking that every single player's Flagship needed to be a must-have, and that's where the mistake is when we broadened it to every single player's. Trout, Tatis, whatever. Certain people, I think, are always going to be ones you're going to chase after, and those I think are going to continue to hold value and go up, along with performance. But we got into this phase where every single person's Flagship was expected to be huge and expected to be massive, and that's just not only what it, Chris. Yes, Bowman's best. You can chase after the only Wander rookie in Bowman's best. But we did have a question from Jenny Miller, and Beau, I know you probably have some thought on this, but I'll ask both of you guys. What happens if we don't have a season with the Wanderers? What do you think happens if, because obviously we know we're at least not having 2 series. Who knows what's going to happen? It sounds like they're a lot farther apart than I thought, even though it did seem a little optimistic today, at least last night, with them extending the deadlines and everything. But what do you think happens if, at least with Wander and we'll take the prospecting market. We'll throw Wander into the whole prospecting market if baseball, or at least if Major League Baseball, keeps canceling games on us.
I think the one thing that I get a little bit nervous about is like, could this turn into like what the basketball market did when the season got canceled? Like, could it turn into like every single, prospect has the potential and it kind of drives up the speculation and prices kind of increase while nobody's playing? So that's one thing I am honestly a little bit nervous about. I think, it's unfortunate that we probably, depending on how the season goes, like at this point, I think it's 50-50 whether we do or do not have a season. So like, who knows who's going to be on that opening day roster? Like, how does that affect Series 2? How does that affect Topps Update? Like, do they not release those products? Like, I can't imagine them just coming out with only Series 1 the whole year. Like, I don't know if that's something that maybe, I don't know if someone asked that at the conference, like what happens if there's no season? Like, do they just continue with Series 1 or do they come out? Because there's no point in coming out with a Series 2 if there's not going to be any difference.
Well, that's a real good question. That's a real good question. And I don't know if they addressed it at the conference or not. If anyone has seen that update, please let us know. I would love to hear what they said about it, because those products, like Series 2, if they were going to have it, it's done. Like, that stuff's being printed, boxed up and everything now. Like, it would have to be completed. I mean, those products are not made, that especially not a product like a series, a flagship. That stuff is put out and ready months in advance. So you would think it would have to be either done or scrapped. If anybody has heard, if they've said anything at the Topps conference, I don't know. But that's a good question, because it would have to be done right now for them to be able to do it.
Yeah, because now we'd be seeing too, like what prospects would probably be in Series 2. Like, what rookies weren't in Topps Update or weren't in Series 1 that are starting the year on the opening day roster. Typically, those are the ones that end up going into Series 2. So, like a Bobby Witt, for example, might have been in Series 2, or like an Adley Rushman might have been in Series 2. But like, if they don't have that, like, I just wonder what ends up happening to those products. Like, like you said, do they scrap it, or like? Because then what ends up happening to like Heritage High Number and like all the second half of the season products that are like, they're sort of they run on like these new players being in the products. So like, what happens to those second half of the season products? Like, I think that's the one thing that I'm the most nervous about. And then also kind of the speculation as well. Like, what could happen to, the Wanderers? Like, because also it might even be like, who knows, like if Series 1 is just released the whole year, like maybe the hype does die down a little bit with Wander, and like maybe that ends up driving the price up. Like, it's really all up in the air, and I think we just have to wait and see what ends up happening with it.
Well, there will be a Series 2. It'll just be any of those rookies that would be on opening day, they're just not going to be in there. And so the rookies that the rookies that were potentially penciled in those spots on the checklist, you might have another relief pitcher. Figure you have how many baseball, I should know this, 30 teams in baseball times 25. So, I mean, there's plenty of players to choose from to kind of fill in those gaps in that checklist. Topps Update would be the real question mark. And we kind of saw what they did with that during the pandemic a couple of years ago. It was just a completely wild product with, flashback all-star game cards, and it was just a wacky checklist. So I think Topps Update would be one of the main series mostly affected by a lockout that would linger into the season. But as far as like Wander or any of the rookies, Wander's basically the only rookie that's hyped right now, but it's kind of and it's in the hobby with, any prospect, any hot rookie. It's what have you done for me lately? And the longer we don't have baseball, the longer you forget about a player like Wander Franco, and it's just gonna dive until we get baseball back. But in the prospect market, there is minor league baseball.
Right, there is minor league, so that's going to be good. So like Bobby
There's
Witt
still
might even play in the minors.
Yeah, so he could start in AAA, or if that's what they choose. So there's going to be minor league baseball. So there's going to be prospect wave of maybe there's more eyes on minor league baseball than previously, because it's the only baseball in town and in the States. And that could drive up, Bowman products and the prospecting market.
That's where I think we're going, honestly. I think you're going to see not only this year's Bowman, I think you're going to see the last couple years of Bowman. I'd say from maybe 2017, 2018 and up. I think you're going to start to see a major increase in the demand for that stuff, especially if that's all you've got. I know a lot of people I've seen going away from the hobby and looking at what baseball fans have been saying. I've seen a ton of people saying that they're canceling their MLB subscription, ordering the minor league, package, whatever they can do. So there's obviously a lot of eyes that are going to be put on that, but it's, update things like that. Suze, if you're out there, like Chris Harris says, I would love to hear, Suze, what the contingency plan would be for all of this. If there was, if the strike and lockout does persist, but Topps has got to be happy. Topps fanatics, whatever you want to call them, they got to be happy. They got about 80 other licenses now,
right,
to rely on, because this could be, at least if you talk to some of the experts, it looks like this could be a long and painful process. And so I hope it's not. The 2017 archives has the Rob Manfred rookie card. Yeah, possibly a good opportunity. Burn a couple of them too. Maybe like a voodoo doll. Maybe it'll just hurt him a little bit too.
Put it up on like a dartboard or something.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Rich. Yeah, see, that's what I saw. That they're not auto renewing people on MLB TV. And that's good. You shouldn't auto renew it when your when your season's canceled, but that's a good move on their part, because I did see a lot of people complaining about that. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I think.
What did they do in '94? I think it was, from what I remember, I had already drifted away from baseball into basketball in the early '90s, so I wasn't actively collecting baseball. But if I remember, and Rich is in the chat, I'm sure he knows. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure they still printed everything as normal in '94. I mean, as normal as you can during the strike in '94. But I wasn't actively collecting then.
I wasn't so much into baseball back then. I was much more into hockey and basketball. But from my recollection, they did still print pretty much everything. Now, I was a kid, so I wasn't necessarily staring at release calendars and checking every single product all the time, So sure, they could have absolutely canceled, some products, but I don't remember it ever being a time where there was nothing. It's not like they just stopped printing or anything.
Yeah, I was only one at that time, so I don't think I had the finger strength to open up packs. Right. But I don't know. I'm not sure. But I think things are obviously a lot different from '94 to now. So I would imagine did they have like Series 1, Series 2 update back then? Like I remember they did have the like Topps traded sets, but like I don't remember when they stopped making those, or if they had like Series 1, Series 2, all that kind of stuff back then either.
Yeah, it was more of the traded. They're definitely, I don't remember it being, I know it was a lot smaller if it was. As that 70s said, they also had much longer lead time back then, which is very, very true, which is something that is the biggest problem right now in the hobby, I think, is lead times, period. And from everything I'm hearing, printing might get even tougher here in the future. But Yeah, it's I don't remember it being anything. I just remember a lot of other collectors migrating into basketball and a lot of other people migrating into hockey. But you also got to remember this is right around the same time when basketball, it was a very coincidental thing, but baseball had their whole deal in 94, and then in 95 you had all the chrome, the finest, and all that stuff started to come out. Then Upper Deck came out with the jersey cards and everything shortly later, short thereafter. And so you had a lot of new technology, a lot of new stuff coming out that I saw a lot more people moving into the basketball market, at least when in the area that I was in, baseball became a non-entity. It became something that really nobody was after that much. But
I was in junior high in that era, and we had, like, me and my friends had already migrated to basketball by like 92. Shaq, Zoe, Grandmama. I mean, those guys really, set the tone for a big surge. And of course, the Bulls with their run, their three-peat, the first three-peat. So by 94, like, I wasn't even paying attention to baseball.
Yeah.
And then when I paid even less attention, and, not until 98, until the home run chase, did I come back.
Yeah, I think, like, unfortunately, baseball was like the most affected sport during the pandemic too. Like, they lost like almost a full season, and then they have a half a season where there's like only half capacity for fans. So like, it really doesn't make much sense to me why they can't figure out. Like, it doesn't make much sense to me that they can't read the room to realize that like MLB is like on like a ventilator right now. Like, they're about to like be a sport that no one cares about because people can't watch it. Like, it's been 2 years. There's been 2 years over the past 3 years where they have argued over, playing. Like, they couldn't figure out the deal, because even when the pandemic was all going on, like, they could have played more games. Like, they could have put together some sort of deal where they played more games and started earlier, but they had a month-long argument on how many games and how they were going to get paid and all this type of stuff. And I'm completely on the players' side, because like, if it's a players versus owners, like, it's, the owners, this is just another business for them. Like, the MLB players, like, and also at the same time, like, you can look at it that way too. Like, where players, this is maybe just another business for them, because if they can utilize their, presence on social media, they can build businesses nowadays, where in 1995 there probably wasn't somebody, the possibility of somebody making $1 million because of Instagram or because of social media, because obviously social media wasn't around. So like, I don't know. I just feel like MLB has to read the room a little bit better and realize that like, they're on the verge of becoming the most irrelevant sport in America, which is like, they're becoming so irrelevant that like soccer is becoming more popular than baseball, which that's not necessary. Soccer is great. I love soccer, but like, to say 10 years ago, if you were to say soccer was gonna be more popular than baseball in 10 years, someone would be like, you're a crazy person.
Exactly.
But like nowadays, it's like, it's almost become just as popular, if not more popular.
For me, the most frustrating part is there was no sense of urgency until yesterday.
I mean,
right.
They didn't meet for how many? Was it like 40 days? They didn't even meet for 40 days after the season. And then like a week before, it's still like they're still pretty far apart. And then, hey, the deadline's tomorrow. Oh, we actually better, talk with each other, talk with both sides, and try to hammer things out. And still, couldn't get close enough to, couldn't even get close enough to extend their day, because that was kind of my, my optimism throughout the day. And I was watching MLB Network, half the day just to follow along, hopefully celebrate it at 5 p.m. or 4 p.m. And I thought, maybe they'll hammer something out. They'll extend the deadline to midnight tonight, and that'll be good news. But then all of a sudden the news comes out. This is our final and last. Players reject it and go home. And it's like, well, it's going to be a while now.
Yeah. It definitely is, and it's rough. And you had mentioned soccer, and soccer is gaining in a ton of popularity. And you've got the World Cup coming up, and if baseball's not on around that same time, I think you're going to have a lot more people go over to the soccer market. And like Rich said, we've been waiting on soccer's moment for more than 50 years. It was always the future sport, and finally it is. I agree with that. I think it has been something that we've been saying for quite a bit, but soccer is where it's at in my eyes. I've talked about that forever. If we're talking about collecting, you and I know both have had this.
Like after the national in 2019, I was like all in on soccer because it was just such an untapped market. Like you could buy Ronaldo's for like Ronaldo's rookie card, which some people say it's the sticker, but the Mega Cracks rookie, like even up until 2020, it was like $4,000 for a PSA 10, which now it's like $400,000. Yeah. And I mean, I think with soccer in general, it's like I think the big thing with soccer is that like it never had an American league that was something where a 14 or 15-year-old could look at it and be like, I can go to this league and then go somewhere overseas. Like they looked at like a sport, and if they're athletic enough to play soccer, they're probably athletic enough to play borderline some other sport and maybe make it pro if like they're looking at that route. So like the fact the MLS is like 25 years old at this point, like I think that's why you're seeing like American soccer too, like American players playing overseas now. They need to step it up and make the World Cup. If they don't make the World Cup, there's going to be way bigger issues than there was when they didn't make it in 2018. This is, I've heard people call this the golden generation for American soccer. And it's just because they have so many young players who are, 2026 when the World Cup is in America, they'll be a little bit past their prime, I think. Like this year is really their opportunity where they got to make it. I mean, and that's where I think soccer is in general, like with the MLS and then with all these players playing overseas. Like you have in the Champions League right now, I think there's 16 teams left, and you have like 5 of our best players are all playing on a team, like Pulisic, who McKinney's hurt, but he'll be back hopefully. Reyna is playing with one of the best players in the world. I mean, if no one's into soccer, these names are probably all sound like I'm talking Spanish to some people. Right, but honestly, like if you're looking for something interesting that you haven't followed in the past, I think soccer is definitely a great opportunity. It's a little confusing to be completely honest, but I think once you kind of understand the landscape, it's actually really interesting.
No, I agree. I think soccer is one of the most fun sports to collect because of its intricacies that you're talking about. And it was something that like at the 2019 Nationals, that's when I was really introduced to it because there was a lot there, and I saw it, and it was a completely untapped market, and then it started to build up, and it was something that obviously as people that put out content, you have to learn the market. So, dove in, started learning it, and the confusing and the weirdness, the oddness of it, the different leagues, everything, the crossovers, everything is actually something that made the products more appealing to me and actually makes it a little more fun. And like you said, on the American side of things, you've got some of the best players in the world that are American players playing, not playing in the MLS, but playing in massive leagues.
I think like all the starting 11 are on some team in Europe that's like really big. I mean, I think that this year was the most that they've ever had play in the Champions League. I think it was something like 22 or 25 players or something like that played in this year's Champions League, which is the most it's ever done. And it's not like these guys are just bench warmers like Pulisic. These guys are like in some cases they're the best players on their team. So I mean, I think also with soccer too, it's kind of like baseball with prospecting, like because of the way that it's structured, where a player either plays, they could play in the MLS, or if they're playing overseas, they play for a smaller team, and then they kind of go to a bigger team in one of the big 5 leagues. Like it's very much figuring out those prospects and figuring out like which players are going to jump to the next league, or like which players, or maybe they're going to jump to a smaller league so they can play a little bit more. And it's intricate, and I think it's very interesting in my opinion.
Well, this is interesting, not the soccer part of it. No. So this is interesting. Like, where will people go? if there's a couple months without baseball, do they migrate to soccer? Herman in the chat brought up USFL. The USFL is starting up, I think, this next week.
Yep.
We've got March Madness around the corner, and for me, that always kind of takes precedence over baseball anyway. So that'll take my attention away from not having baseball, at least for, the next 5-6 weeks. But once we get into April, where do we go as collectors? Where are, the various, the baseball card collectors? What are they going to do? How are they going to, what are they going to watch? What are they going to collect? I myself am a majority baseball fan and collector, and I don't even want to think about making these plans, but I have a feeling I'm going to have to at some point. Like, what do I do with that, that emptiness?
Well, you mentioned, you mentioned the NCAA tournament. This is a tournament that I'm going to pay really close attention to, at least from how people in the hobby are watching it and seeing how much attention it does get, because now you've got all the NIL stuff. You've got all these new, you've already got collegiate products, but now you've got a lot more opportunities with all these NIL licenses. And I've been interested to see how the hobby is going to take to that, how long it takes, what the effect's going to be on college sports. And so I think this March Madness is going to be a little interesting to see how it does with some college. And I think you're going to see with no baseball, like you said, if there is still no baseball and everything, I think you're going to see quite a bit of attention and quite a bit more attention put on college athletics and on basketball than you have in the past. And with all the NIL stuff, this tournament, I think, is an interesting one to see how it's recepted by everybody in the hobby, I should say. And with such an open field, I mean, let's be honest, I can see 9 or 10 teams legitimately to make a case for to win it. I think you're going to see a really competitive and fun tournament. So I think that's going to be something that could have a bigger hobby impact than we think, and that it normally does.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too to see kind of how Topps goes about it, since they've been doing some of the Bowman Next products. They just came out with the Chet Holmgren Topps or Bowman Next card. They also came out with the Chet Holmgren. They signed him to an NIL deal. So, it's going to be interesting to see. I think long term, it's going to be interesting to see how the hobby kind of, if they want those cards. Like, I feel like there's very much, college cards and unlicensed cards. Those are probably two of the stinkiest cards, from a collector's perspective, or they have a stink to them. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Like, people don't necessarily like them that much, but like some people love them because, if somebody is a LSU fan, like say they're the biggest LSU fan in the world and they can get a Joe Burrow LSU card, like that's something that, they can get for a cheap price and it's still a great card. Or like if they're an Alabama fan, or or if they're like a Chet Holmgren
East
fan,
Carolina fan,
right? Exactly.
How else am I going to get East Carolina stuff without these collegiate cards?
Exactly. So it's like, and then the unlicensed stuff. I think I'm sure we could all go on tangents about if unlicensed is better or if it's or what it is. But like, I just think that I think that if like a player like Chet Holmgren goes on to be, a great NBA star, that Topps or the Bowman Now set is probably going to be an important one. I think same with like Mikey Williams, who's playing. He plays for I forget the team he plays for in high school, but he's a senior. But he plays in basically what LeBron played in, where they play like on the national circuit with like Overtime Elite and stuff like that. Like he had a Topps. A Bowman Next set. So if he goes on to the NBA and becomes a great player, like you have a defined rookie card. Sure, it's from him in high school, but it's like you have a defined number of rookie cards and it has the Topps logo. Even if it's not a pro card, like it's going to be interesting to see how those cards, like what happens to those cards in the future. Like if those, obviously the players have to pan out. Like that kind of goes without saying, but it's like, it's an interesting new set that, print on demand is kind of a fairly new concept. So it's going to be interesting to see if like that's kind of an area where people maybe overlooking it now, but maybe they look back and they kind of regret maybe not buying more of those cards.
And I wonder from like my own like speculating, when I go online and buy some of these, are people going to will it be like the next first Bowman where, there's been a huge, surge in popularity over the last couple of years with that first Bowman logo. And, in 5 years from now, will NIL be like that first Bowman? Will people be attracted to those first NIL cards? And that's something that, I kind of, battle back and forth in my own head. Are these going to be accepted hobby wide in the next few years, or is it just going to be kind of remember back in the 90s classic force sport, and is it going to be taken like some of those? But those were also packed out and printed like crazy. So
100%. I think they are going to be. I think you kind of nailed it with like the first Bowman. I think that's where you're headed towards. And like you said, obviously we're obviously talking is if these guys pan out. Obviously, anything can happen, but if they pan out, the print on demand stuff is something that I think in 10, 20 years, when you're looking at the guys that started in these beginning of the print on demand sets, that some of them are so low printed, some of them are so short printed compared to everything else that they're some of their lowest printed rookies that they have, period. Right. I mean, you look at, I've been telling people for months now that the best card to buy right now is a Soccer Tops Now card, the Ryan Cherokee PSA 10. It's his only rookie card. It's the only rookie he has, period. And he's a bright up and coming star that I have a lot of faith in. And the print run is, like under 3,000. And I mean, that just doesn't happen when you get rookies of other people. And so I think that you're going to look, and I don't think it's going to be, one of those things that's league wide, every player all the time, and every card's going to be worth a ton of money, blah, blah, blah. But I think you are going to have those players that do pan out. I think they will look at these like first Bowmans, and will look at them as, like you said, kind of almost give it that baseball feel of prospecting and going up. And I think that opens up a whole new market for collecting. And I think it's awesome. And as Rich says, I think another vintage run is coming. I agree with him on that as well. I've seen a lot of the upcoming auctions, and the two things that surprised me the most were how much vintage was on them and also how much Harry Potter was on them. Harry Potter has been going crazy lately, which has been surprising to me. But saw some Daniel Radcliffe. I guess I've never watched any of those movies. Thank God my kid wasn't old enough, so I missed out on all of that. I was busy in college talking to girls, but there's apparently some quad auto just sold for like $90,000 or something at the recent Golden auction. So I mean, Harry Potter stuff's taken off. Pop culture stuff's taken off right now. There's so many different avenues of the hobby that are so strong right now.
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, I participate in almost every Harry Potter weekend that is on TV. So like anytime that one of the Harry Potters is on, I'll usually tune in for a little bit, at least until the next commercial for sure. But like, I think like you said, like with pop culture stuff, like I think where sort of we're going into is that, or where the hobby and kind of card collecting and whatever is, I think we're going into an era where there's so many different licenses and there's so many different products that are being made of basically everything. Like I think, over the next few years, hopefully we'll start to see like every sort of media entity get their own kind of trading card set or something along those lines. Because I think the amount of people who are interested in trading cards is obviously going up. You're like you were saying at Collectors Con, like there were so many people that were doing like Pokemon. Like it just makes sense that like, and NFTs are kind of the same thing, but like I think with cards in general, like with Harry Potter or with Fortnite is another one that I think is actually super underrated. Like in my opinion, Fortnite is a cultural phenomenon. Like I don't think that there is ever going to be a game that will have a hold on the gaming industry and grow the gaming industry the way that Fortnite did. And I think 5-10 years from now, people are going to look at it the same way that, for example, like Minecraft, like me and you and Beau may not play Minecraft, but there's like millions of people playing Minecraft every single day.
My 6-year-old can build houses that do everything by themselves in that game.
Right.
So yeah,
right. It's crazy,
dude. Yeah.
So like, with Fortnite, I think it's underrated just because I think the original skins that come in that like 2019 Series 1 are just like, I even have nostalgic feels whenever I'm on like TikTok or something and I see a video of people playing Fortnite and they're like crowded around the like screen. I'm like, I remember getting like first wins and all that kind of stuff. So it's like it's the cultural cards, I guess, pop culture cards, I think are definitely interesting to kind of keep your eye out for. Like, I think 1988 is a art gallery. Like there's an artist and they just did a Squid Game set of cards. And it's the first ever Squid Game cards. And I don't know how many they printed. I know they did print on demand, but they also did a Ted Lasso set. So it's like you're seeing kind of these one-off companies do these types of cards. So I think that's definitely something that I have my eye out for.
Man, I wish they'd made those when like The Office was out and stuff like that, and all the shows that I watched. I would have loved to have got my hands on them.
Good. We need more pop culture cards.
There you go. I love it. Awesome. Oh man, those bring back some memories right there, dude.
I'm a sucker for those.
Same here. I love them. I think they're awesome. That's what. Then there was a lot of that stuff at CollectorCon this weekend, and that's where I think, you know, like you were talking about Fortnite. I do think that that's something that, you know, we always look at cards and everything from our own eras and everything. We never think about the younger generation, even though we always talk about how the younger generation's the future and all this stuff. We never think about what they're collecting and actually think that maybe the future likes this stuff, so it's going to be worth something. But yeah, I think, you know, Fortnite, stuff like that was, like I said at the beginning of the show, to kind of round it up as we're approaching 10, you know, it being at that show and seeing everything right there, at least the TCG, the pop culture area, that side of the hobby, and like, you know, whether it be TV shows, one-offs, whatever it is, that's so strong, it's not even funny. Like, I mean, and having Culture Collision in Atlanta and CollectorCon in Orlando so close to each other and being so packed, so heavy, I think, you know, just shows how strong the hobby is. But I think there's a ton of opportunities out there in some untapped markets that I think are going to go way up here in the future. And I think Magic's along with that. You know, they busted $1 million box this weekend of Magic at CollectorCon. I mean, it was a crazy big deal. We won't talk about Vanilla Ice's performance because that was just won't even get into that. Disappointed me. I really wanted to hear Go Ninja Go, and it was awful. So, you know, what are you gonna do? But yeah, definitely a rough one. As Rich Frank says, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh are the next to come up. I could see it. Absolutely. Yeah, I could see all of those. It's the TCG space is very strong. That I can definitely attest to. I just spent a week with all of them. But yeah, so I guess, guys, it is coming up at 10 o'clock. So I guess we'll wrap up this episode of Hobby Hotline Overtime. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure to tune in this Saturday to Hobby Hotline. Remember, every Saturday at 11 a.m. and every single Tuesday at 9 p.m. We'll have awesome new lineup for you guys coming up this Saturday, so make sure to tune in. And yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of the week. But Adam, Beau, appreciate you guys joining the show today.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for running everything.
Absolutely. Well, y'all have a good evening, and we'll see you guys Saturday. Peace.